We are live as far as I can tell. So hello everyone, any viewers who may be arriving. Today's lesson is actually a group lesson, and I'm the coach, international master Alex Astaneh. And well, today let me just fix this right here. Today we have two students with us, and they are um, approximately 1700 in strength. Um, you guys don't mind if I mention your names to the chat, to anybody who may be watching here. If not, please write in the chat a different name that you'd like me to address you as for this lesson. I see that there's a few people in the chat as well. So the way that this is going to work is because I'm here with the students and they have indeed confirmed that they're okay to be called by their names. Because these students, Tobias and Marlena, they are the students of the lesson, we will first take their answers to different positions, but I will also keep an eye out on the YouTube chat and interact with that as well. So feel free to join along as a sort of interactive lesson and test yourselves. Well, what is actually going to happen today? As you can see from the title, today we're going to be talking about, hold on, let me just view this event so I can see you guys here in the chat. Today, yes, so hello, Easy Peasy asks, are you Alex Lopez? Yes, I am Alex Astaneh Lopez. Sidant, is he reading this chat? I am now. And hello to Mihlali, to Akash, to Spartaf as well. Hey guys, for joining in, and hopefully more to come. Yeah, so what I was saying is that this lesson, it's going to be about an hour long, and the focus is going to be on attacking chess patterns. So anybody who, sometimes they love to attack in chess, but sometimes they don't see the killer blow or anything like that. One of the things we want to address is that there's a lot of different patterns that the good players, the master level players that are just, crushing this competition, these guys are, they've memorized, they've just internalized all these different patterns. And that helps them a lot when it comes to attacking. At the club level, players know a lot of these patterns, but they don't know them quite as well as, these beasts of chess like, Magnus and all the other top guys. So we're going to talk about a few of the patterns. There's thousands of patterns in chess. So today we're going to be focusing on three of them. I won't describe them just yet, but one of them involves sacrificing a couple of pieces in a row. I don't want to give too much away, so you guys can test yourselves before you know. And the other two patterns we're going to be focusing on are Bowden's mate and Daviano's mate. So hopefully some of you guys will be familiar with these. Tobias and Marilena, can I ask you, Bowden's mate and Damiano's mate, do you guys know, without Googling, do you guys know what these are? Also in the chat, I'd be curious. What do you guys think? So Easy PC says, not at all. Abdelatif asks who I am. My name's Alex, and I'm an international master. And I'm one of the premium coaches at coachess.com. Granite, I'm indeed reading YouTube chat. And Sammy, he knows Bowden's mate. Granite knows Smothered mate. Well, keep an eye out because there may be a puzzle there as well. We're going to have some puzzles as well at some point in the lesson. But without further ado, let's actually kick things off. The first puzzle here is a relatively simple sort of pattern. And we're going to start off where White, he was the player, he was Mikhail Tal. And he played the move, and he was playing against an unknown player. And he was with White, and of course he's completely dominating here because he's got this monster knight on d6. He's actually threatening checkmate here on f7. And so Black, in order to stop that, he desperately just tried this move, knight takes e5. So what is the idea with this move Sorry, so what should white do here against knight takes e5? This is my first puzzle, so I'm watching you guys, Tobias and Marilena. What would you do to win here as white? There's a few ways, but there's one that is the most effective. Akash, you got that right, by the way, about Bowden's mate. And Sammy with a great answer. Marilena also getting this right. It's a free piece. Granite in the YouTube chat, he says rook takes f7. Now, rook takes f7 would be a really nice move to play, but after black captures that rook, it's not as clear as if we flip the order around. So one thing we notice about this position is we would love to play rook takes f7 if this knight couldn't capture a rook. Now, the question is this knight doing anything else? We notice that the knight is defending the bishop, and that's what Marilena means when she says free bishop. We capture that bishop. That's exactly what Tal did. And the point is that black cannot capture the queen because the knight was covering f7, and this is the first checkmating pattern. It's a pretty straightforward puzzle to warm up, but they will get a little bit more complicated. So now we're going to approach the first big topic, big pattern that I wanted to show you, which was one that involves sacrificing more than one piece. So I won't give it away. For now, we're going to set up this position here. And, well, after this move, queen to e2, we have a position where black, I believe he played a6. Now, white went knight h5. And we see that there's a lot of pressure here on the knight on f6 and the pawn on g7. Well, black simply decided to capture this piece. Sorry. Okay, black decided to capture this piece. And now in this position, do you know any move? Like what move would you expect to play in this position? I think the normal move would be to just capture this knight. But is there any other move that we might consider? Can anybody tell me? Marilena, Tobias, or anyone in the chat? Aha, so Milali and Sami, they're both suggesting the idea of capturing on h7, as did Tobias. Now, sorry, let me go ahead and just change the settings. I believe I can. Yes, others. So the students, we don't want them to be able to see the engines. So after knight takes, there is this possibility of capturing on h7. Let's take a look at that. Now white can go after. Let me remove all the highlights. Let me put the move mode. And now can go bishop takes h7. But after king takes h7, queen takes knight, king just drops back to g8. And the problem is we're actually down, we're down a piece. And it's cool, you know, we have a bishop on e5 and we have a queen on h7. So we've got a lot of pieces against the black king, but we need to do something quick. Otherwise, we're just going to be down a piece. So what's the idea here? Siddhant, for example, he suggests to move rook to f3. And the idea with rook f3 is you want to drop that rook either to h3 or to g3. Really nice, and it could work, but you have to be careful because black, with an extra move, can play f6, shut down this bishop, and let's say that you start trying to attack along the h-file. What's going to happen is black will grab this bishop, and after you give a check, black will scurry away with the king. And it's difficult because, as they say in chess, you're running out of pieces. This is the problem that white faces. But we've got a nice strategy when we're attacking, we should look first at checks, and that's actually what helped us to find this move here. Rather than just a capture, we looked first at the checks. So this is a really smart idea. And the second thing after checks is we look at captures. And it's only the last thing that we look at is threats. So let's think about that. Checks, captures, and threats in this position here. Do we have any checks? No. There's just, unfortunately, there's no good check apart from if you're feeling very, very generous with your queen here on the h file. So the next thing to look at is captures, and absolutely correct. Bishop takes g7. So well done, Tobias, or well done to Marilena, apologies. Bishop takes, and now the thing is, black has to face this huge threat of queen h8. This rook is also hanging, and if you try something like f6, white has a variety of ways to play on, but even to continue the powerful attack. So what black did was to just capture this bishop. Now black's up two pieces. The crushing move here. I see a few people wrote it already in the YouTube chat. Well done to you guys. I'll give a chance to my students for today, Tobias and Marilena. White to play. What's the best move? So Zubar, he says rook f3 in the chat. So does Sidan, so does Easy Peasy. But guys, remember, what's the rule? We first look at checks, then we look at captures, and then we look at threats. So what is the first move to look at? Yes, some people in the chat correct. Queen g4 is the only check that doesn't lose our queen. And it turns out to be the best move. Now, this requires a second pattern. So the first pattern we saw is sack one bishop, sack another bishop. This is called the double bishop sack. And this is one of the original games played by a former world champion, Emanuel Lasker. He played with the white pieces and he just ripped his opponent apart like this. The point is, black actually cannot put the king here on f6. Can someone tell me what's wrong with that? Marilena, exactly right. Queen g5, beautiful mating pattern. So that's another one to know in this sequence. So after queen g4, the black king cannot run to the f file. And this turns out to be critical because the black king now has to go to the h file. And now what's the move that we play, guys? You guys, the YouTube chat is crushing it. And Marilena, absolutely correct. Rook f3, the final pattern. This is a beginner's pattern. It's the one where you see that checkmate along along the file with the queen and the rook combining. This one is taught to beginners, who are up, maybe a queen and a rook, but they just need to be able to checkmate their opponent. So here, there's nothing to do against rook h3. Black's pieces, notice, they're mostly on the queen side and just totally ineffective. So very, very nice, very, very nice pattern. Let's go ahead. Well done to everyone who solved this. Let's go ahead and open up the next position. Okay. So in this position here, it was Judith Polgar against Anatoly Karpov. And, well, Karpov, former world champion for anyone who doesn't know, amazing defender. This guy is not one to get checkmated easily or to get attacked easily, but Judith Polgar, top female of all time and an incredible attacking player. So Karpov didn't sense the danger. He played a move like queen to c5 here. And, well, no points for guessing, guys. What do you think happened next? Yes, Marilena says the same idea. Indeed. So we start off with what move? Bishop h7 sack, correct, guys? Bishop takes h7. Black now goes king takes h7. And we now follow up with queen to h5 check. Black now goes king back. And now we no longer have any checks, so we take a look. Do we have captures? Bishop takes g7, Akash and Zubar. Tobias also in amongst the students, very nice. Bishop takes g7, and again, it's the same crushing problem. So what can you do in this position? If you're black, you're facing checkmate. You've already your rook is attacked. Your king cannot escape. It's so difficult. So, in fact, Karpov he basically just gave up. He resigned. But imagine if you had played king takes g7. In this position, how would you continue? How would you? Marilena, very nice spot. I was hoping to be able to trick you guys, but everyone in the chat is they're too alert to get caught out. So what I was hoping you guys might say is queen check, king moves somewhere like h7, and now rook h3. The same pattern as before, but this would have been a little trick. You always have to stay sharp. That bishop in this case is covering the h3 square. So Marilena and a few people in the chat, you guys all got it in one. It's first you start with rook g3, and this time the king cannot go to the h or the g file, can only go to f6, and now queen g5 is checkmate. So well done, guys. Okay, one last one that's going to test you a bit more now that you know about this double bishop sacrifice. So in this position here, well, it's a very different one at first sight. But white cannot actually play immediately the bishop takes capture, because for starters, this bishop on b2, well, it's right now it's just facing a pawn. So it's Kasparov playing as white, arguably. I mean, some people think he's the greatest player of all time, of course. Many people will take Magnus or Fischer over him, but in any case, he's one of the greats. And he was an attacking great. So what do you think he played here to set that up? Kasparov versus Portish, white to play. Sinan, absolutely correct. Marilena, very well done. Yes, Rahul, d5 is the move here. d5 is a very nice idea. On the one hand, you open up your bishop from b2 straight up to g7 on this beautiful diagonal. But you also KO this bishop here. It's out of the game. So this is really a very nice detail. Can remove these highlights. And now black can capture here on d5. And it turns out that black is in a bit of trouble here. Well, what do you think? What do you think happened next? So I will just give a little bit more time. A little bit more time to you guys, because this one is a really tricky one. So I want to give the students a little bit more time to figure out. Yes, we know what the start is likely to be. Bishop takes h7. But here's what I actually, let's put that into the board. Bishop takes h7. Now, king takes h7. What would you do here? Knight g5. So, bishop takes g5, and then queen h5. So this is actually a little bit premature, because black can go bishop to h6. And all of a sudden you might be running out of pieces. So white cannot actually rush to this bishop takes h7 idea, and instead prepared it. Sorry if I misled you guys a little bit, but instead prepared this by first capturing here on d5. Now, after bishop takes d5, the situation becomes very different. Because white first starts now with bishop takes h7, but after king takes h7 is able to recover this bishop. So we have to be careful before we just dive into the sacrifice and before we sort of let ourselves be tricked by what a pattern that we're familiar with, because sometimes it will work, but sometimes we need a different detail that bishop can be captured on d5. Now that's how the game continued, and black here went king to g8. So black goes king to g8, and so it's like we have some similarity. We've sacrificed one bishop, but we got it back. What do you think might be the move here, given the theme? Fluffy Giant is the first to get it absolutely correct here. Marilena also with this move. Bishop takes g7 was uncorked by Kasparov against Portish. But you guys are correct. It's a beautiful move from Kasparov, but here's the tricky part. What are you going to do now? You're down. You don't have your easy checkmate because rook g5, for example, is just going to lead to losing the rook. You don't have any checks with the queen, except maybe on b2 or on e5, but you have to be careful. For example, if you check on e5, black will just exchange the queens. So, but I love what you guys are saying in the chat. You guys are all saying the move queen b2. That is the move to first look at. And there are tricks in this move. For example, let's say that we play the move queen b2. And black now goes ahead and plays bishop f6, blocking the check. Now, white would have a crushing move. What is the crusher? Rook g5. Brilliant stuff, guys. Rook g5, the problem there is you cannot take the bishop, and this is like a nice typical motif. You say, well, the black king is the only piece defending the bishop is pinned, so I'll just give a check, force the king away, and now after queen takes f6, we can see checkmate is going to be is going to happen very soon. So very nice. The problem is black has other options. For example, he could block with the f pawn. He could just go back to g8. That's actually one of the best options here, king g8. And then it's not that easy to continue the attack. And this is where the brilliance of Kasparov comes in. I'm going to tell you guys the move because, well, actually, I'll leave you guys. Nobody in the chat and none of the students have actually gotten this one. So I'm gonna give you, just as I say that, Fluffy Giant and Akash both kill my fun, and you guys both get it correct. Very nice. Knight e5. And why this is so beautiful and so deep from Kasparov is he must have seen this right at the very start here. When he went d5, he was like, yeah, no problem. You take me back. I'm just gonna sack this first bishop. Sorry, not like this. I'm doing it wrong again with the same pattern. So I'll first capture, then I'll chop here, and then I'm not done yet. I'm gonna chop the other bishop, and at this moment in time, none of the checks work and none of the captures work. So I have to play a slow move, and those are the hardest moves to see. Knight e5 is a beautiful move. And the point is that white now has huge threats. He wants, for example, to bring his queen to g4. And there is simply no good way to prevent this. You guys can check by yourselves. It's a famous game, Kasparov-Portish 1983. But I'll tell you what Portish did. He tried to move rook d8 here. Tried to move rook d8. And now what happened is Kasparov went queen g4 check, king f5, and now another threat, queen f5, deadly threat here on f7. And after queen f5, black tried to defend with the move f6, but the pieces started to invade. Knight d7 check, and it's just absolutely horrible. We leave it at this, but the pieces are just coordinating way too well. Black actually felt the need to just chop here on d7 to get rid of these pieces. But one example of a beautiful pattern is, let's say, what would happen, guys, tell me, what would happen if the king went to e8? Sorry, can anyone tell me that? Marilena, absolutely correct. And Eliyahu Zubar, also correct. Queen to g6 or even to h5 would be a really nice checkmate. So let's show that there. King goes to e8, and now the queen here to g6. Very nice mating pattern. So again, super advanced mating patterns, but these are the ones that are so important to just build up a list of patterns. So that's been the two bishop sacrifice. And you saw three examples. Kind of the original, the Lasker one, straightforward. The Polgar one, a little bit more tricky. And this Kasparov one, just showing his level of class. Let's now look at the next mating pattern. It's called Bowden's mate. So how many people in the chat are confident that they're familiar with Bowden's mate? So something strange happened there, guys. I'm gonna flip that board. Granite has no clue. Zubar does. Fluffy Giant, Akash. It's the crisscross, as Roger's English channel says. Absolutely right. So why is it called Bowden's mate? Well, it's because the original game between Schulder and a fellow called Samuel Standage Bowden. And he, with the black pieces, actually achieved Bowden's mate. So let's see what happened. Well, there was this whole game over here, and everything was kind of normal. Back then, this was the 1800s. They didn't play quite as well the opening as modern masters. So this pawn structure, it's a bit ugly for white, and black already has a great position. And we see that Bowden smartly he castles queenside while the white king stays in the center of the board. Now knight comes to d2, rook goes to e8. And in this position, white goes queen f3, and black plays the move bishop f5, and now a huge mistake from white. White just castled in this position, but should he have castled short or should he castle long? One of those two moves loses on the spot. Can anybody tell me? Which way would you castle? Are you a red man, a red person, or a yellow person? Marilena, absolutely correct. Zubar, correct. Megaj, everybody is correct. Their spidey sense is tingling. Do not castle queenside. Unfortunately, nobody was there to tell Mr. Schulder at the time, so he castled queenside and promptly got crushed. What is the move? Marilena has already got it. So well done. But Tobias and anyone in the chat, black to play. What's the best move here? Akash, well done. Very nice. So Akash the first in the YouTube chat. D5. What's the point? It's a little bit like that D5 we saw earlier in a different example. Activate the bishop. In this case, the bishop that's being activated is this one. And that turns out to be really important because when white deals with the threat against his bishop, he took. Now black smashed through with the move Zubar has already said. Marilena already got this. Queen takes c3 check. Always look for checks first. B takes c3. And you just lost the queen, but the good news is bishop a3 is this crisscross bishop mate, and that's called, after this game, called Bowden's mate. Now it's really useful to have these mates, to know them very, very well. And I'm going to show you, does anybody know the name of a very strong British grandmaster? His name is David Howell. Is anybody familiar with him? Sorry, by the way, guys, I've had the night bot there. Appreciate the sentiment, Granite. I think just the Nightbot settings had been previously configured. Rooksy, what's up? It's good to see you. So David Howell he's one of Britain's absolute best players. He's been around 2,700 in FIDE rating, has defeated some of the world's best, Aronian, Grishuk, in the last year or so alone. And he showed me before, he's a good friend of mine, and he showed me before a game that he played. And I would like to show you guys this game. And it was against a British chess player, against a fellow British chess player. And, well, he was white. And in this position, he went rook takes d5. Very, very nice move. White now went bishop takes d5, and the black rather, and white took here on d5. Now, what's the material count? Well, white has two extra minor pieces, but black has an extra rook, which means white is doing really, really well on average. Black now plays the move queen b6, and here David had a move that was inspired by Bowden's mate. What do you think, guys, that he played? There's a few different ways to win the position if you're white. Notice, for example, this rook here is hanging on g8. Certainly an argument could be made to scoop that rook. But it turns out, you have to be a little bit careful to not allow some counterplay. For example, you could take here, black might take here, hit your bishop, and you might just go knight here, and be very careful because, let's say if you slip up, you do something like this, white goes here, now queen, now a move like queen e1 check here, and that's some nasty counterplay. You're actually going to get checkmated. So although white is in control, he has to be a bit careful. So what's the move, guys, in this position that he went for? Really nice idea. Queen c4, says Adam Dean. Yeah, well, if you go queen c4, black would not be able to block with the queen, because if you block with the queen, then the queen is only defended by the knight, so we would just take that knight and then win the queen for free. So black would have to play something like knight c5. And that pin of the knight and the rook hanging, you're absolutely right, Adam. This is a winning sequence. However, we've got something even stronger, and Akash and Peter are there with this idea. Knight a4. Really nice. Now, this was the move that David played. Here's the thing. What happens if queen a5? Can somebody tell me? Marilena, by the way, sorry, I just noticed right now you got it. You got it. So Marilena, you've been crushing these mating patterns. So against queen a5, bishop takes knight from Adam Dean. Exactly the same point. Bishop takes knight. The point is the queen is hanging. So after I take here, that's a free queen. So white knew black couldn't go there. So what to do if you're black? Well, there's a pawn here on f2. That seems quite tasty, and that's exactly what black did. It's a nice move because you're threatening the bishop on f4 and the knight on g1 and some queen e1 checks. But now white to play and KO the unsuspecting opponent. Marilena, absolutely right. First to get it. As for first in the YouTube chat, Peter, and just behind Agoston, Fluffy, Akash, Sidan, Joao Branco, they all are channeling the David Howell energy. Does that even make sense? Probably not, but well done on the answer. Queen c6 here. And it's again that theme of Bowden's mate, bishop a6. Really nicely done, and a very nice finish to the game. I think black even was nice and allowed the checkmate. So it's very nice. Crisscross bishop, Bowden's mate. Now the last position that I want to show you on this case, and I think that this is, sometimes how it plays down to the last move. So I wanted to make sure that didn't happen. So this last game that I want to show you guys It was a game played by myself. It was in the Irish Championships in 2010, and I was playing a 2200 rated player, strong player. And we got this position, just normal position at first, and then it quickly got crazy because white said, I want to attack you here on the king side. So I said, let's fight on the center. So white kept going, and I said, I'll keep going in the center. And so we got a knight for a knight, and then a pawn for a pawn, and everything seemed pretty balanced. We were both quite happy with the position. But then, in this position here after knight c6, and rook g2 from white, white clearly wants to attack in the king side, and I want to get something on the queen side going. And notice this bishop cuts off the diagonal. So I saw the king could be in trouble, and I thought maybe there's some kind of Bowden's theme going on here. So what could it be? Black to play. Is there a move here that looks interesting that might use Bowden's mating pattern? Granite asks, great question. Will solving puzzles help me see these mates we're learning? Absolutely. Here's the trick, Granite. Solve quite a lot of them. It's like, you know, the way footballers or fighters or something, they make the same drills time and time again, or golfers. Solve a lot. Don't solve only 2 easy ones, because then you won't make as much progress. Don't solve 2 hard ones, because then you'll probably lose interest in chess and you won't learn as effectively. Solve at sort of on the edge of your level. Challenging puzzles that you're able to sort of knock out of the park with enough dedication to them. So, few people are writing in the chat. Great idea with a move like b5, by the way. Very, very principled. Crack open files on the queen side. And I agree, it has potential to bring this bishop into attack. For example, takes on b5, and some c4 ideas at some point will bring the bishop. Looks like a great move to me, to be honest, b5. I went in a different direction, and that's the one that Pratik and Kshitij and Adam all suggested. And of course, Marilena just smashing these questions. Knight d4 is the other possibility. And my opponent had actually arrived an hour late to the game. And so he was playing pretty fast. And he just said, well, okay, I don't get this. I'll just take this knight. Now I'm up a piece I took back, but I'm down a piece for a pawn, but I'm attacking this bishop here and this bishop here. And so my opponent thought that he could just take here, win, give back his piece. But in this position here, he was quite happy, he told me after the game, because he saw I'm up a pawn, and he expected I would move my queen somewhere, and then he just crashed through on the g file, and it looks like black is in trouble. But what could have been the move here? Marilena, again, I'm gonna start banning you, Marilena. You're literally getting every single one right. I'm of course joking, but well done, well done. And in the chat, lots of people also crushing this one. Queen takes d4. So in this case, it's correct. Queen takes d4, queen takes, and bishop a3. It's the Bowden's mate theme. Now you don't checkmate in this case because white can block. But the point is that even though white blocks, at the end of the sequence, what is the problem? What is the problem for white? Yes, Tobias, absolutely right. Rajendra, I think that's what you meant as well. Correct. And Akash, the point is at the end of the sequence, this bishop is hanging. So rook takes e2. And yeah, just black is up a piece, and so white resigned. So it's important to understand that these mating patterns can help us even when it's actually like not a mating pattern. We just borrow the ideas. So well done to everyone who got that. Let's move on. We've seen the 3 examples of Bowden. We're going to now talk about Damiano's mate. So the first game I want to show you is a game taken from the tournament played in Ireland. And yes, a tournament played in Ireland. And in this position, it was a great Polish grandmaster called Bartosz Soczko. He's 2600 plus for many years, coach, very principled, very hardcore player. And he was playing a 2100 FIDE player from Ireland here. Black to play, crushes white. And what happened here? Yes, Akash, first person to get this particular pattern. Adam as well. And Marilena basically gets it right to the end. So the pattern here is you find the check. The check is here. This is called Damiano's Mate. Rook h1 check. White takes that rook. And now queen h7 is check. Now you can block with the bishop if you want, but that's just going to delay the inevitable. White has to go king g1. Black now gives this check. White goes king f1. And now black takes the pawn on g2. Game over. So that's a relatively straightforward one. But let's show a little bit more of a tricky one. Now, in this position here, sorry guys for the technical stuff. In this position here, believe it or not, the computer thinks white is crushing. The computer thinks that after the move knight c4, white, who was a very strong grandmaster, actually he's an Irish grandmaster, Alexander Bowden. He's been for many years Irish #1 player, and he was playing the white pieces, and suddenly Adianto did something. Utut Adianto, grandmaster, as well. He played a move here, setting up a beautiful checkmate. Lau Familo says it's also called mate. That never happens. Okay, what do you think is the move, guys, to set it all up here? Adam crushing it, Sinan, Sidant as well. Marilena suggesting h3. The problem after h3 is we just go g3, and we kind of survive. Black's position is interesting, but white is doing okay. Instead, we want to set up that mate with the rook. So black goes knight h5. Correct to you guys in the YouTube chat. And the threat, let's say that white does nothing, is to just go knight g3 with a check. Again, always look for checks first. And this pattern right here is a very important one to know. The rook combines with the bishop, and the king is stuck. But this isn't the one that we were talking about, at least not the only pattern that we were talking about, because of course white wasn't gonna just make life so easy for black. So what do you think white did in this position? What do you think? Yes, Marilena, correct. We are not going to give up without a struggle, so white just shuts down the bishop and regains the g1 square for the king. Again, the computer says black is just in trouble here because, I mean, let's say that you did something like this, you might have to watch out for knight d6 checks, certainly just queen takes e3, and at the end of the day, white's pieces are really nice. He's got a beautiful center. This bishop doesn't play. Be very careful. But black had a nasty little surprise here. So what did black do? Marilena says, no, Marilena does not say. Alexander Illich with some very nice wisdom, but not quite that order. First, he went knight g3 check, correct to Peter O. Forking the king and queen, you have to take. Now takes on g3. And the white king just went to g1. Now, what happened next? Yes, Akash, and yes, sorry, by the way, for anyone, Alexander Illich, this is absolutely the idea. I think you were the first to post it. No, I think, did somebody else? I think the first person to say king e7 was Illich. It's in this specific position that this move was played. A very subtle move. It's hard to understand it unless you know Damiano's Mate pattern. Well, white went in this position. He wants to get rid of this pawn. Now, white could have, for example, said, white went queen e1. And the idea was he just wanted to take this pawn on g3. Um, White could have done something else. White could, for example, have tried to move the rook. So let's talk about those two possibilities. What would you do against a move like rook c1? White says, I want to run away with my king. c9, very nice. Rook double sacrifice. It's the same idea as in the first example, it's just a little bit more advanced. We sack one rook, we check, we sack another rook. This is the kind of thing that we wish, most people wish they could play like this against the grandmaster, uh, you know, even once in a lifetime. It's just a beautiful combination. Now black goes queen h8 check. White king has to go to g1, no other square. Black goes queen h2 check. King goes to f1, and now we see the deep point. The queen on e2 stops the king from moving. So queen h1 check ends the game. Bishop can block, but because we have our bishop on c5, we can just take this bishop. Game over. Very beautiful sequence. So white said, no interest in that. I'll go queen e1, and at least maybe now I can get rid of the g-pawn, or maybe I'll have the e2 square in the future. But of course, with the rook on f1, that's hard to do. So, sure enough, what did black play? Rook h1 check anyway. King takes h1. Rook h8 check. King g1. Bang, the double rook sacrifice. Queen h8 check. And after king g1, queen h2 is checkmate. And this is Damiano's mate. Very, very, very nice idea. Now, somebody is saying, Samuel is saying in the chat, well, king e7 is not a good move. So, Samuel, why is king e7 not a good move? Any thoughts? So Soimel says, well, bishop takes bishop on c5. Very good. So this is the final point that we can discuss. Because you're absolutely right, Soimel, and somebody else also mentioned it. This is the natural move. It's the check. So let's look at this. Well, after rook takes c5, the point is still the same pattern is there. What can white play here? For example, if white tries the same idea like queen e1, we can just follow up with rook h1 check, king takes, and queen h8. So, in fact, it turns out that it doesn't really change anything, taking on c5. It's the first move we should look at, so excellent to bring up this question. But the rook being on c5 just doesn't hurt black. If anything, maybe it'll help because the rook can just land on h5, so you get more possibilities. But very, very important point brought up. So that is it as far as Damiano's mate. Now, I want to talk to you about a few different themes. Let me show you a game of one of my Irish chess colleagues. For those who don't know, I'm one of the top players in Ireland. And so right now I wanted to show you a lovely game, little opening trick that you guys might be able to use. And this one was played by Sam Collins against a 2,000 or so FIDE rated player. Sam is a over 2,400 international master, just so you guys know. And in this position right here, straight out of the opening, anybody recognize what this is, by the way, guys? Is this what this opening is called? Yes, guys on the YouTube, and Marilena first to get this, the Berlin. Now, black goes knight d6, and white grabs his pawn back. Black now takes, and white takes here with check, and black now blocks. And so far, this is all theory. But after the move knight c3, it turns out black forgot his theory. and he took on b5. Robert Murtek, Kasparov's nightmare. Indeed, that's a reference to the fact that Kasparov lost his world champion title against Kramnik in London in 2000, and that was because Kramnik used the Berlin Wall when Kasparov was white, and he just couldn't crack this very solid defense. But here, Timothy Spanton, the black player, goes wrong. He captures on b5. And now Marilena already crushing it with the answer. Niraj, correct, first in the YouTube chat, knight d5. Very nice. Black must have expected that the knight would be captured, but there's a trap. Knight d5. Now you might be thinking, well, okay, black can just castle. That's exactly what he did. White can capture here on e7, recover his piece, and after king h8, you might be thinking, wait, aren't we studying attacking patterns here? Why are we now looking at just some opening theory in the Berlin? Well, the reason for it is because in this position, white played a move that threatened a checkmating pattern. And that checkmating pattern is called Anastasius Mate. So what do you think was the move from white? And it's the best move. Yes, correct. In the YouTube chat, I believe Marilena says rook h5. I believe that's that order has a problem, which is that when you go rook h5, black can actually take this knight. So instead, we go queen h5. Well done to you guys who got this answer really fast. Queen h5, and Anastasius Mate, we can just show it. Let's say that black says, I'll kick out your rook. White actually plays what move here? You guys are already saying, yes, very nice. Queen takes h7 check. King takes h7, rook h5, and this rook and knight combination, super important pattern to know. The knight takes away the squares that the king could move to, and the rook delivers that checkmate on the h file. Of course, it can be delivered with a queen instead or something like this, but the pattern remains the same. So black saw this and said, well, I'll go to move g6. White now went queen h6, improving the queen, and black now went rook e8. So he's avoided Anastasius Mate, black, but it's not a good sign when white has three pieces all gathered around your king side. Sorry, guys. All gathered around your king side, and on top of that, your dark squares are so weak. But we still have to kill off the opponent. Marilena simply on fire. Well done, Marilena. I won't give the answer until someone in YouTube gets this. Marilena, by the way, has not played chess in a year. I think a lot of us would sign up to be as to be this level of sharp after not playing for so long. So Sidant, correct. Peter O, correct. Easy peasy, correct. Josh, Nicolo, you guys, Sidant, Eflam, you guys are all crushing this one. Basically, the move rook h5 is a beautiful move, and the reason is I'm threatening checkmate. So what to do? You have to take my rook. And now another pattern arises. Queen f6. And that's a nice pattern to know. The knight and the queen combined, the knight robs the king of the g8 square. And it's a beautiful, also some people would study this under attack along the dark squares. But it's a really nice pattern. Okay, so I actually, Sinhan, I think would be beautiful to show a Magnus Carlsen example. Unfortunately, I don't have it for this particular series because what I wanted to show just in the remainder of the lesson was a few different varied examples. Let me just remind myself what is the next one I wanted to show you guys. Okay, I'm going to show you guys one from a game of mine, and let's see who can solve this first. This was a game, this was a bullet game. Sorry, it may have shown up for a brief second. This is a bullet game between myself and a fellow by the name of Penguin GIM1. Do you guys know Penguin? Are you guys Penguin aficionados, aka Andrew Tang? Aerial Flux, don't spoil the fun for me. I'm sorry about the glitch. Yeah, Marilena knows Mr. Penguin. So Penguin has haunted my dreams as a bullet player myself. Penguin is the stuff of nightmares, one of the fastest players on the planet, and just an absolute monster. This guy regularly faces off in Bullet against Magnus Carlsen. And although Magnus does get the better score, I don't think there's many players in the world who can compete with Magnus in the way that Penguin competes. So this guy's a beast. So by no means am I in the same league as him, but the fact that I'm not in the same league means I really enjoyed this particular pattern against him. In this position in a Bullet game, I played the move Queen takes f7 check, and after King h8, what was the crushing move? Marilena scoops it on the spot. Zidane, John Williams, you guys also. Aerial Flux bringing the psychic powers to the table because he actually guessed it before I even showed the game. So you know, when you're competing on that level as Aerial Flux, we cannot compete with that. We cannot do anything about it. Very nice to all of you. Knight h6. And the idea is I threaten Smothered Mate, and I mix two patterns. The Smothered Mate with the queen and the rook combining along the last rank, combining to give checkmate to the king on the last rank. So basically, you cannot take this knight because queen takes h7, checkmate, game over. But the beauty of it is that here, if you play a move like rook f8, white here will go queen to g8, check, and after rook takes, knight f7. I've got a dirty confession to make. Penguin was streaming at the time, and I went afterwards. I knew it, and I went back to the stream afterwards, and I wanted to see what he had said of this particular pattern. And he actually had just missed it beforehand, so it was a rare victory for me. He beats up on me all the time, so I hope he'll forgive me. He'll forgive me for showcasing a rare example of an upset. But it was a satisfying pattern to get against a guy who's so tactically gifted as he is. Well, what have I got for you guys left? I've got 3 more puzzles for you guys today, so let's show the next one. Let me just show you this. This is here. Okay, so this is a game between Bobby Fischer and Ruben Fine, and it went like this. And Black was just grabbing pawns nonstop. Anyone recognize the name of this opening, by the way? Yes, the Evans Gambit. You guys are very, very knowledgeable. Tobias also smashing this one. Basically, after he takes d4, the game went castle takes on c3, queen went to b3, and now Black actually went queen e7. And this is a mistake. In fact, you have to be really careful when you face off against Bobby Fischer. That's the first thing. But second, when you face off in such a sharp position. Turns out computers nowadays, they say queen f6 is good. But I mean, if you're anything like me, it's so hard to understand why queen e7 or queen f6. Ruben Fine was a really strong player, but he went to e7 just to defend the pawn on f7. Now, the big difference is we can actually take this pawn. Maybe on f6, the pawn would have been protected. So the knight is threatening to come in. Black went knight f6. White went knight d5. Very nice idea, because here you want to open up that e-file against when your side is castled and the opponent is still on the starting square on that e-file. You just want to do whatever you can to open up the e-file. So Fischer is doing really, really good job here. Black went knight e5 to keep the e-file shut down. And after knight takes e5, queen takes e5. One thing that is kind of nice for Black is that the e1 square is covered by this bishop. But it turned out to not be enough. So I'm just going to set up the position now in 1 second. I'll show you what happened. Bishop went to b2. The black queen moved away to g5. And white threw in this h-pawn just to kick out the queen to a square where the bishop is attacking the g7 pawn. Queen takes h4. And now white took this pawn. And here comes the position I want to test you guys on. In this position, how would you start things off? There's a few ways to win, but what would you guys do? What do you think Mr. Bobby Fischer did here? His first starting move. Queen e3 check suggested, very nice idea, very, very natural move. But a few people wrote it, and you guys are, the majority is right on this occasion, and it's the move rook e1 check. Why? Your queen is already in the game, and frankly, you do not care if black grabs this rook, which he did, but that's just an exchange. Sorry there, it seems some kind of lag. Bishop takes e1, rook takes e1, very typical idea when you're attacking. You just give up an exchange. It doesn't matter when your opponent has pieces like these. They're not even in the game. So it's like, am I down in exchange? Or am I down in exchange, but he's down a rook and bishop? But black, of course, went to d8. And now, what is the mating pattern that might spring to mind, guys? If black, for example, if you could combine the pieces that you have right now, what's a potential mating pattern? Nicolo, Sinan, you guys, Marilena is suggesting Queen C3, a rare slip from Marilena, although you're absolutely correct. Queen C3 is plenty to win. So it's not even a slip, but it just happened to not be Fischer's move. So this is the best I can get against you, Marilena. But basically, the move is what some people were suggesting in the chat. Queen G3, it's the same idea as what Marilena wanted to do. She wanted Queen C3 and throw that bishop on F6 and just end the game. Queen G3 is a little bit nice, a little bit more flashy, in my opinion, but Queen C3 is winning. It's forced mate. So you're absolutely correct, objectively. But Queen G3 is a nice pattern because the idea is you get that queen, you kick it off the squares that can cover F6, and you just straight up are attacking the queen. Black resigned. Why? Because if you take here on G3, bishop F6, game over. Very nice mating pattern, delivering the finish there from Bobby Fischer. The next game that I wanted to show you, we're down to two more. We've got a return of Bobby Fischer. And this is a game that he played against Robert Byrne. Now, why is this happening? Okay, so we're going to flip the board. We're going to flip that board. And we're going to take to this position here. White goes rook d1, and black plays the best move, knight d3, jumping into that beautiful square. Some people call this sort of the Octopus Knight when it's on that 6th rank. And now in this position, white went queen c2. Of course, white wanted to chop on d3. And now we have a different pattern. Granted, by the way, says, I've seen this game. It was also a Byrne-Fischer game, but it was, I believe, against his brother, Donald Byrne, where there was that windmill. But excellent. I nearly showed exactly that one. But this one is a bit different, and you guys who are knowing it, that's another point. That's another point. It's not always just about like pattern recognition from studying tactics. Sometimes it'll help you to attack these patterns. You just pick them up from studying master level games. So you guys are all crushing it. Knight takes f2 is the point. And this is well known as a way of just breaking down what's the e3 f2 complex, or sometimes the e6 f7 complex, depending. Okay, so black goes knight takes f2. And what was the point? Well, what can you guys tell me? What is the follow-up? Marilena, well done. Knight takes f2, king takes f2, and Nicolo, knight g4 check. I'm assuming a lot of you guys in the chat that said knight takes f2, you saw this follow-up. It's very, very nice combination of the two knights. White went king g1, and now black took 2 pawns. Final thing I want to show you in this particular game. I think this is beautiful. I think this is instructive, even though some people will say this is a little too technical or something like this. But after this move, queen d2, Bobby Fischer played the best move in the position. Can anybody tell me what that is? Showing the knowledge, Tomas, Josh, Peter, Akash. Okay, you guys are all just beasting this one. So the point is, you guys are all correct. Knight takes g2. But isn't a bishop worth less than a rook? Can somebody tell me why did Bobby Fischer take this bishop instead of this juicy rook on d1? Knight takes g2 is the move. But why? Josh got it in one. The bishop is the key defender. So knight takes g2, king takes g2. And here's a little detail. This is more positional chess, strategic chess concepts than checkmating patterns or attacking patterns. But in a position where you have won one of your opponent's bishops, and you keep that bishop. So in this case, the light squared bishop you took, but you have the light squared bishop. One thing that you gotta be prepared to do is you gotta be prepared to maybe give up material to make your bishop count as much as possible. So Nicolo, correct. The move d4 is the best move in this position, and that's what Fischer chose. The point is, after knight takes d4, that's one pawn, but look at those bishops, crushing bishops. Now white ran away with the king to f1, and black just slow moved queen d7. But not so slow, because look at the light squares, they're being ripped apart. We've got queen h3 coming up, and we've got this bishop impossible to contest. We've got the rook on the e file, and we even have this bishop here. It's just a masterpiece from a very young Bobby Fischer, I believe. Don't remember his exact age at this time. White went bishop b2, tried to stay alive. Queen h3 check, ends the game. After king f2, it's just queen g2. That's checkmate. Now, here's a question. What do you do if king goes to g1? Correct, Marilena. Tomas, I think that also wins, if memory serves me right. But we can be a little more direct. And yeah, so a bunch of people are getting this correct. Bishop takes d4, check. And the point is, another very important tactics concept, when a piece is doing too many things at once, then that piece is vulnerable. So sometimes we can talk about deflection, other times we can talk about removing the defender. By the way, if you guys are interested in this, if you guys have been enjoying this lesson and you want to catch other lessons, at the moment there's a campaign with one of our sponsors, Julius Barr, and most days at 8 o'clock Central European time, on Fridays it's a bit earlier, it's 2 o'clock Central European time, we actually have some lessons with co-chess coaches. They're doing them on the Chess24 YouTube. There's 3, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and they're Monday 8 o'clock, Wednesday 8 o'clock, Friday 2 o'clock, and on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8 o'clock Central European time, they're actually on the Spanish Chess24 channel. So you guys might want to check them out if you like sort of this type of content where you're learning about tactics and you're learning about patterns and things, all sorts of different things. Those lessons are going to be going on until the end of November. So check those out. They are designed for a lower level, more beginnerish, but anyone up to about 1500 or so, I think, can get some enjoyment out of them. Okay, well, let's show the final puzzle. And we are back to Mr. Grandmaster David Howell. And he played a beautiful game. I really don't want to show, no. Guys, I hope that you were not able to catch that. If anyone caught this, please don't say it in the chat. Sorry, it's just somehow goes to the last position. Okay, here's the position. White to play is absolutely crushing. Sorry, black to play. White is absolutely crushing it. He's got the center. He's got those rooks really well placed. He's got a better bishop than a knight. He's got his queen centralized. And his king, although it's not perfectly safe, it's safer than black's. So black is in serious trouble, but he tries to wriggle on. He goes knight c8. And now white goes rook f3. This move here, rook f3. And David, he made a point. And he said to me, when he showed me this game, he said, well, I was thinking to take here. Easy peasy. By the way, do I have a Twitch channel? It's not too active at the moment, but it is twitch.tv/Astaneh. I also have a YouTube channel called Astaneh Chess. I hope to make these more active in the future, but sometimes it's just hard to find time. What I'm doing at the moment that I'm absolutely doing full time is I'm working with CoachChess. So you guys can find me on coachchess.com as one of the premium coaches. And you know, even if you don't like my style, but you're looking at coaches in general, check out the platform. There's many coaches and many cool things to come. Okay, so what David was telling me is king e7, queen e8 check, king d6, make that king run, king c5, and usually when you have to get the king to run like this far, and the queens and the rooks are still on the board, you know things are good. White is down to full rook though, but David was saying that he's got some crazy variation he was looking at that was something like this. And in the end, after king f4, he just grabs this rook. But he didn't do this. He saw it and he felt, yeah, this is winning. But he understood there was more chance that he would overlook something in this way than if he would play the clever option, first rook f3. And this is hard to understand the point, but we'll give it to the chat. Final puzzle of the evening. Marilena, Tobias. Black went queen h2, white to play, find the best move. Marilena. Marilena is just a monster. She gets it again. I won't call it out until some people are saying it in YouTube. Yeah, we've got the people. They're rolling in. I'm sorry if I am getting this wrong. By the way, thank you so much for your comment, Sinan, from earlier. And two says Raluca will teach until November. Yes, absolutely, she will until the end of November at least. Um, yeah, so a few people. Akash was commenting it. I think he was the first. Sorry if I'm missing anyone. Johan, uh, also very well done. Mati, Sinan, you guys are all getting it. Have to say, Marilena was the fastest on the trigger, I believe. So Queen H8 check. This is the kind of move you want to play, especially against a player of the caliber of Ivan Sokolov, who was 2,655 in rating at the time. Black here tried King E7 and resigned after Rook takes F7 check. Well, what's the point? The point is this nasty X-ray here. Sorry. This nasty X-ray right here. Ah, I keep misclicking. Queen takes H2. So the idea is Black can take this rook. We just take here with check. Always look for the checks first. And then we scoop up this queen. It's game over. However, what would have happened if rook takes queen? Dagny making a really important, a really logical point, sensible point. Sack the queen to be on the safe side is kind of crazy. But you know, the chess at this top level and their way of thinking about positions is, I think, it's quite crazy and quite alien to most mortals. Rook takes f7, king g8, rook f8, king moves to g7. The other rook lifts to f7. And after king h6, that's the only square. There's just nowhere else to go. Notice the attention to detail from Grandmaster Howell. He had spotted this particular quite unique pattern with the pawns on g6 and g5, and now rook takes h8 is just game over, checkmate. Okay, guys, that's been it from me. First of all, thank you so much to both Marilena and Tobias. I hope you guys enjoyed the lesson. And you know, well done on the patterns. I hope you guys also on YouTube you guys also got a lot out of this. Drop a like or a comment or anything like that. It's always helpful, always encouraging. I don't know exactly if and when. I don't know, actually, sorry. I do know. I will be back for another lesson on Saturday at 4 o'clock, I believe. Let me just double check that for you guys. It will be, I don't know what the exact topic will be. Let me just check. So it's going to be, sorry, it's going to be on Sunday, and it's going to be Sunday at 7 o'clock. Sunday at 7 o'clock Central European time. So anybody wants to tune into this or anything like that, go mark it on your calendar or something like this, and I'll be back. Thanks everyone for just contributing to the YouTube class. I love these interactive lessons. And if you want to find out a little bit more about CoachS, go check out coachs.com, where you'll find me as a coach, as well as many other coaches who are regularly giving lessons on the Chess24 channel, but also the CoachS Twitch channel. Go check that out. It's twitch.tv/CoachS, and the CoachS YouTube channel. Again, the same thing. You can just find it by YouTubing CoachS, and you'll see a lot of this content will be posted there. So thank you very much. Hope to see you on Sunday. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. It's been fun. Thanks once again to my students, Tobias and Marilena, and we'll see you again in a few days. Cheers.